2005. My name is Stephen Goldfarb. I'm here with Francis Hopkins Westbrook. We're at the History Center, Atlanta History Center in Atlanta, Georgia. It's early afternoon and we're interviewing Mr. Cheves, who served in World War II. Mr. Cheves, would you please state your full name, your where you live now, and your date of birth?
Well, I'm James Parks Cheves, Jr., C-H-E-V-E-S, better known as Buck. We live in Dahlonega, Georgia, and August the 13th, 1923 is my birthday.
Would you just fill us in very briefly about where you were born and where you went to school and how big your family is, that sort of thing?
Well, as a matter of fact, I was born in Atlanta, Georgia, and have lived all of my life growing up within a mile of where we are right here. I grew up, for all practical purposes, on West Chatham Avenue, which is right up the road. Went to R.L. Hope, Norfolk High School, the University of Georgia, and the School of Hard Knocks somewhere along the way, things like that. And
Your parents' names?
parents, James Parks Cheves was my father,
Senior.
naturally, and my mother was Elizabeth Chumbley Cheves. She was a Virginian. My father was born in a place called Richwood, Georgia, which is down near Cordea, but his mother was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, Nettie Gilbert.
Okay. And how many brothers and sisters do you
I
have?
have two sisters
Younger or
that
older?
are younger than I am, one by 2 years and another one by 7 years.
So you were the older brother.
I was the oldest one, and my parents experimented on me.
Anyway, so let's turn to the war. You tell us, how you remember Pearl Harbor. Did you got into the war before?
No, I was at the University of Georgia in Athens when the war started.
What were you studying?
I was, as a matter of fact, I was living in Joe Brown Dormitory over there, and I can remember very vividly that we were pretty good at sacking out on Sunday mornings. And we finally woke up. John Sims was my roommate, and he was raised right in around here. About noontime, they turned the little radio on. Of course, they announced that Pearl Harbor had been hit. And of course, we all jumped up and very patriotic, 18 and 19-year-olds that still wet behind the ears and wanted to go into the service. And I would have liked to have volunteered, but my mama wouldn't let me at that time. And about the time that she said, well, go ahead and do it, volunteer for it, it was too late and I had to wait around for the draft. And drafted in January of '43 was when I was drafted in, and met up right up here at Jacob's Drugstore, as a matter of fact, with all the ones from this area that were going out to Fort McPherson. The mayor of Buckhead, I think his name was Red Daly at the time. He was the one that, Red Durrell, I'm sorry, that was the head of the draft board, at least we thought he was. So we went, a bunch of us went down to Fort McPherson, and that was the beginning of our adventure with Uncle Sugar.
And just go ahead and tell us what happened. Did you, where were you trained?
Well, I guess one of the things that has stuck with me over the years was in the very beginning, you would have thought that I would have known a bunch of the boys that went from Buckhead down to Fort Mac with me, but I didn't know a soul. And that kind of persisted throughout the service. I never saw but 3 people that I ever known in my life before I went into the service. And being transferred from place to place, you would meet boys, and then they would be gone. And then there'd be some more that you would meet, and they would be gone. Sticking around with training period, we had a group that stuck together, and then later on, we had a group that stuck together.
Where was your training?
I was lucky enough, I went to Miami Beach, which was the place that they took all of the boys that were in the Army Air Corps, not the U.S. Air Force.
That was later.
And I don't know how I got into Air Force, the Air Corps, but I did, and I was delighted that that happened. And then we went, the ones that got accepted for pilot training, went from there up to the University of Vermont, a bunch of us that did, University of Vermont, came back to Nashville for classification, and to Maxwell Field at Montgomery, Alabama for a little bit. And then the flight training, they had primary training at Americus, Georgia, old Westover Field, which was really just a big old, could have been a cotton field or something like that with a few of the ruts gone. The only thing concrete on there, I think, was the place in front of the barracks. And from there to Greenville, Mississippi for basic training, and to Columbus, Mississippi for what am I trying to say, advanced training.
Was there any, you were always going to be in bombers? There was no...
No, didn't know where you were going to go.
So they trained you for both fighter and bomber?
No. Well, in the beginning, we flew the old Stearman bi-wing plane in primary training. And it was, as far as I was concerned, it was a controlled crash every time you landed the thing, because you couldn't see in front of you because all the plane was up there, and you could look off to the side and do all the judging. And you'd have to walk the rudders down when you hit the ground to keep from ground looping. And then we went from there to Greenville, Mississippi, and we were flying what they call, it was a basic trainer called the Volt-T Vibrator, and it was a heavier ship, and it still had the tricycle land, had the tail wheel tricycle landing gear, and it was a delight because, you know, anything after the Stillman would have been just duck soup, so to speak. Went to Columbus, Mississippi, and got in twin engine. I guess that was when they kind of separated the fighter pilots, quote unquote, to the others. So, and it was a good, easy airplane to fly. And
what was this now? What plane? What plane was the twin?
I'm sorry.
What plane was the twin plane?
It was an I'm going to say AT-13. It's been a long time ago, but it was a little twin engine, two-seat type airplane. And that's where we got our wings, was at Columbus, Mississippi. And that was our first leave. Of course, we got to leave and came home for 2 weeks or whatever it was.
They must have thought you had, but coming back as a second lieutenant, they must have thought you were pretty fancy.
It was, because the rumors, you know, the Army lives on rumors. And the rumors were that a lot of them were going to be flight officers instead of second lieutenants. And of course, there wasn't anything wrong with that. But then we came back to Cortland, Alabama, and trained in B-24s for, excuse me, I guess we were there for 6 weeks or something like that. They were trying to teach us how to fly the big boys. And it was a good airplane, I thought. It was heavy. As long as the engines were turning, you were in good shape. And then we went from, and I say we, I mean I went to Westover Field, Chicopee, Massachusetts, and picked up our crews. And we went from there down to Chatham Field at Chatham Field at Savannah, Georgia. Trained for a while, then went back up.
Now this is still B-24s.
This is still B-24s. Went back up to Westover, and after some more training, we shipped out for a place called Ephrata, Washington, which was in the middle of the boondocks, and that's where we were on our final leave when we went out there. And dropped the bomb just before we were ready to go overseas. We were headed for the Pacific, obviously. And they dropped the bomb.
You talk about the atomic.
The atomic bomb, that's right. And for some reason, they took all of the command pilots, or the ones that sat in the left seat, and sent us to the Marianas. They left all the crews, the rest of the crews, everybody else, co-pilot and everybody else. And I guess they went their own ways and shipped us over, as I say, into the Marianas and spread us out. And I never saw another one of I guess there were 12 or 14 of us that went over. Never saw them again.
Tell us just a little bit about flying the B-24. You said it was a good plane, and
it was, I loved it. Of course, I had a lot of time in it. I guess 400 hours or something like that. A lot of people didn't like it. They thought that it was clumsy. And I even heard some cat tell me 8 or 9 years ago that it was a hard plane to land, but it was probably the easiest plane to land if you had any depth of perception on the thing that it did, because you get down and then pull the throttle back when you were a few feet off the ground and just sit down on the ground. It probably had as much impact on the war as the B-17 did, except that the B-17 got all of the publicity because of the Flying Fortress and this that thing. We called the 24 the pregnant guppy, although for whatever reason. But it was faster, carried a bigger payload.
How big a
farther.
crew? How big a crew?
Crew?
Yeah.
We had 10 men.
Can you tell us
We
what they
had
did?
a pilot and a co-pilot and a navigator and a bombardier. All of that four were commissioned. And then we had a crew chief, an assistant crew chief, a radio operator, a ball turret, belly turret, tail turret, and a top turret. And then we had guns in the waist, which would be manned by whomever needed to be there at that time.
Well, the training must have been somewhat dangerous as well. Did you have many accidents? Or?
Well, I think by the time I got into training, which was in the, I'm going to have to think a second, started at Westover Field in probably February of '44. They must have perfected all of the training, because we never, either that or we were an exceptional bunch. Because we never had any kind of, maybe a minor accident, but nothing approaching anything, a fatality.
So you trained during the day, at night? Did you train for night bombing?
We would, of course, the primary training was in the daytime, down at Southern, because all they had at Southern was an old field that was kind of bumpy, and a cross out in the middle of the field that showed you which way the wind was blowing from, and you would land into the wind, no matter what it was.
Just the field?
Just a field. Just like, as a matter of fact, we'll get back to that later. But there was no night flying, because there wasn't any way to land. When we got to Greenville, Mississippi, we did have concrete runways and lights, and we got night training there. And then from then on, there was a lot of night training and night flying, because we were training for it.
There must be a whole lot of difference between landing on a field and landing on concrete.
Well, it was. At least you had something to aim at, except the ground. And you had to land here instead of other. You just landed wherever it was.
Okay, so you're in Washington, then you went to the Marianas. So tell us what happened.
Sorry.
Tell us what happened when you're in the Marianas. Did they continue
of course,
the training?
As I said this beforehand, I did not have any combat experience. I got out there actually before the war was over, before the treaties and everything was signed. and was attached to the 6th Bomb Group of the 313th Wing.
Because they didn't know the war was
the
over.
20th. Well, of course, the Japs, by the time I got out there, Japanese, pardon me, had really surrendered by the time that I got out there. And the boys were flying missions or dropping supplies to the POW camps, our POW camps in Japan, which of course was great. I have somewhere a picture, and I can't find it, of one of the pictures that was taken on one of the drops that Pappy Boynton is here. You know, the Black Sheep Squadron that's had so much publicity and pictures made of it. Well, Pappy Boynton, of course, was the commander and the tough guy in that. And this picture show has Pappy Boynton is here on that. And I guess that and just piddling and fiddling around, we did a lot of flying, or some flying after the war was out over there, and we'd go up to Iwo Jima and land and make
I assume you could see the scars of war all over the different islands.
Well, not really. In Marianas, of course, they had war. Marianas had been Saipan, Tinian, and Guam. But the CDs had gone in and had really fixed up most all of the war derbies and everything had been cleared. Of course, the Japanese didn't have much there to begin with. And they had built nice quarters. Some of them were Quonset huts, which were the metal oval type things, and some of them were built with sticks. And
what did Iwo Jima look like when you were there?
Iwo Jima, when I was there, we didn't hardly get off of the base, and we saw Mount Fuji in the background, but we would just hit the ground and turn around and come back for whatever reason, making time. And you're talking about night flying and places out there. We flew. I have been out that way to San Francisco, taking off and going twice and coming back to San Francisco, and landed in Hawaii 4 times, coming and going, and every time I was there was at night.
Okay.
I've never seen
Never
seen the place. It must be a pretty place.
And you've never gone back?
During the Korean, I went back during the Korean thing now. They called me back in with the Georgia Air National Guard, and we went into Japan. During the Korean thing, I flew a desk instead of an airplane. They didn't have a vacancy for a pilot at that time, and really never did till we were about a week from coming back home, and they said, "We have a vacancy now." I said, "Well, I thank you, but I'll go back home on my regular tour."
I see you have the B-29 thing. Did you have much to do with them?
Well, after I got overseas, that's all we flew was 29s. The 24 was
Is much to get used to from a 24 to a 29?
not really all that much after you got in. The instrument panels in the landings were different. The 29 was not, to me, was not as stable an aircraft as the 24 was. It had different engines. I always liked the Pratt & Whitney, which the 24 had, and the 29 had Wright Cyclone engines in it. And it was a little more of a petite-ish, is that a good word? Petite-ish airplane. Petite-ish would be a little, you have to be a little more careful with it.
Okay.
It was taking off and flying and landing had a tendency to have some problems along the way. So there were a number of planes that were lost, not necessarily because of enemy action, but because of malfunctions of the airplane itself.
Of course, it's also a whole lot bigger.
Well, it was a heck of a lot bigger. I guess one of the big differences was that it was pressurized, and you could go up and you could, of course, keep your atmospheric pressure down to 10,000 feet or 8,000 or whatever you wanted to do in the others. And you were temperature controlled because of that.
The old B-24 was cold.
It was just exactly as cold inside as it was outside.
So you were
Well, you had heavy equipment, and it seemed like to me we had gloves at one time that were heated electrically, so, but it was still cold.
Yeah, I guess you can't heat your face, but I was thinking, how could did that affect your?
You had heavy hands, I mean heavy gloves on your hands, so that really wasn't that much of a problem. And you, after you got used to it, you didn't. The feel was not of touching like in so many things where you feel things by touching it, but you've gotten used to it. And
So you could fly with the big heavy gloves on with not too much trouble.
yes, that wasn't any big deal.
Would you take the gloves off to land?
No.
So you could.
I did a lot of flying. I'm having to remember this from 55 years
Somebody's
ago.
going to be interested in these.
60 years ago.
Chief,
But,
somebody's going to be
you could
interested in this.
trim that plane up, or any plane up, but you could trim it up by trimming the ailerons and the rudders just right, and really it just sat there. And all you had to do was almost just be sure that it was flying right, as it were. And so it wasn't a matter of having to fly it every second of the time you were in the air. If you got it trimmed just right, you could virtually turn loose. As a matter of fact, I had autopilots at the time, that if you were just flying, you could turn that on. Of course, you had to pay attention, because every now and then, I remember one time we had some kind of a malfunction, and Si Price, my co-pilot, and I, we had a button, and both of us hit our buttons instantaneously when it looked like that the autopilot wanted to do something that would
To kick off
hurt
the
us.
to get the autopilot off.
You just, it was, that's right, you
So-
could
so you could
just
fly
like
it.
turn off a light switch is what it amounted to.
On the B-29, how big a crew did it have?
It had the same thing, same number of people, but the turrets, the guns were fired from a central point rather than having a ball turret gunner and a gunner here. You had your control, central fire command, I guess is what you would call it. One of the biggest things that the 29 had that we didn't have in 24s or anything else, as far as I know, during World War II was radar. And radar, the navigator, or the radar operator was one of the biggest pluses. With a good one, he could pick up points and tell you exactly where you were. Because, you know, flying over water, you don't have many checkpoints,
I see.
except that and that, and nothing else to look at.
So tell us, is there any other things that happened in the Pacific? You said you ended up in the Philippines at the end.
And probably in December or January of 45, we took our squadron.
Just the war's over.
This was the war was over. We took our squadron of 29. So matter of fact, it was our group. I'm sorry, it wasn't the squadron. And we flew into Clark Field. And at the time, Clark Field was really about like it was when it was taken over from the Japs at the end of the war. It was very rustic. I don't know why they sent us there, because about a third of the 29s had the ground loop at the end of the runway to keep them running into the jungle. And I don't think that any of those 29s ever flew again. They just sat there. One of the things that of interest was that the crew that I was on, we packed the Officers Club's supply of whiskey in the bomb bays. You know, that was mandatory that you had to have your booze, as it were. And that was what our cargo was, that. which reminded me of another story. When we got our commissions, we had a whiskey allowance. And I can remember walking into the officers club as a brand new second lieutenant and lined up with everybody else to get their fifth of whiskey, which I guess you got once every 2 weeks or once a week or once a month, I don't remember that. And I marched up there. I never had had a drink of whiskey in my life. I said, "What do you want?" And I said, "I want some rye whiskey." That's the only thing I could think of because of the song.
Yeah, I was.
He said, "We don't have any, but we'll get you some by tomorrow." So I went back in tomorrow and got my supply of rye whiskey, and I poured myself my little shot and tasted. That was the worst tasting stuff I ever put in my mouth. So from then on, I would get my supply and give it to the crew for their enjoyment, as it were. But we had a mess hall after the war was over. There wasn't anything to do, and I volunteered for something. And they gave me the mess hall. And on Tinian. And unfortunately, it burned down just before we left, but we managed to feed everybody at that time and set up a new one when we got into the Philippines at George Clark Field. Did I say George?
No, you said Clark.
I meant Clark Field.
Yeah, you did say Clark.
George was in California. But the Marianas were safe. All of the Japanese had been round up, but they were not out to do any harm to anybody, and maybe just survived. But at Clark Field, they had several signs. One of them said, "Their nasty nips have hooked some trips to little cans of powder, so beware," and this, that, and other thing. And the Philippines had a group called the Hukbalahs that were outlaws, and they were probably more dangerous than the Japanese were, as far as, getting your money, whatever they wanted to have. So I never did get off. Well, I say I never did have. We had a little place called Charlie Corn's, which was a little restaurant run by a Filipino, and we get on there and get our buffalo steaks, as it were, a little bit different from army chow.
Tell us about keeping up with folks at home and mail and that sort of thing.
Mail, of course, was very important. I don't really remember whether I got a lot of mail or whether I got a little mail. For some reason, I just don't remember. I do have some letters that I wrote and that my folks saved, but I don't have any letters that they wrote to me for some reason. I don't know why. It's just one of those things. Maybe at the time I didn't think, I wasn't interested in, in what was going to happen like I later on was. But it was good. We had some entertainment from the USO groups.
Who
I don't remember Langford. I've forgotten what her name was. That wasn't me. But anyway, I can't remember who they were. But we had that.
So when did you come home?
I came home in July of '46. We got on, I can remember the name of the ship, the U.S. Marine Jumper for some reason. And we got on the boat in the Philippines and came back through Hawaii and then sailed under the Golden Gate. And as I was telling you a minute ago, it was at nighttime there too, so I never did get to see the beautiful islands. Saw a lot of water around it, however, I might add. And came back and went back over to the University of Georgia.
Under the GI Bill.
Under the GI Bill.
And what did you study? What did you study?
I studied and got a degree in Bachelor of Business Administration with accounting major and government finance as my minor. And of course, came back and made my living, I guess you'd say, in real estate, building and developing and whatever.
So tell us a little bit about, you ultimately got married.
I got married much later. Well, I say much later. It wasn't much later either. It was got married in October. I'm sorry, October of '49 to Ida Lee, my wife Ida Lee Songs. She was from Savannah, and I don't know why we got married. We wasn't making enough money to get married, but we did anyway. And as a result of that, I joined the Air National Guard for the little bit of extra income from it.
Which ended you up in Korea.
And that's the way I wound up in Korea. We went to George Air Force Base in California and then shipped out to Japan. But it wouldn't have made any difference anyway, because while I was in Japan, the U.S. Air Force started sending notes or letters to me to report for active duty.
Oh, based on your World War II.
And that's right. We was in the reserves. Didn't know it, but we were. And Daddy, my father, would take them and throw them in the trash basket. And finally they sent one and said, if you don't report for active duty, we'll come get you. And at that time he replied and told him, well, I wish you would go get him. He's in Japan now.
Children?
We have two boys, James P. III and Thomas Gilbert and Elizabeth Ann. Elizabeth's married to William Smith, so she's Elizabeth Ann Smith. She has a daughter. And Tom has two daughters. And Bucky III has no children. He's an old bachelor. So it looks like it's the end of the Cheves line as far as my part goes at this point in time.
I see. Did you keep up with any of the people in the service afterwards?
Of course, my crew and most everybody that I was with starting off at Westover was from somewhere up north. We were mostly all Yankees, quote unquote, and except myself from Atlanta, and there was a boy named Barnett that was from Mississippi who was had a crew. And my co-pilot was a Tom Meta, M-E-A-D-O-R, from Decatur, Georgia. And when we must have been on terminal leave, or leave just before we were over, and they must have sent us a telegram to report to San Francisco rather than report back to to Ephrata, Washington. So we didn't have anything but names and no addresses. Tom Mellon, my navigator, I did get in touch with him once, not very successfully. He died soon after, so I think he must have been sick at the time. And my crew chief was from a place called Derby Line, Vermont, and his name was Kelly. I've forgotten what his first name was right this instant. And we did a lot of camping out after the family got old enough to camp out, tent camp and so forth, and stopped by Derby Line, sure that, somebody would know him because there weren't but 5 people there. And they never heard of him, so I guess he didn't go back to Derby Line. So I didn't keep. I regret that I didn't, but I didn't because of that main reason. Didn't have any addresses.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to say for the record?
It seemed like it should be something that would be of interest to somebody other than me. I did back in '02, January of '02, started writing I got me a computer back at that time, and I started making notes. This is a resume that I think you all might want to put somewhere, If you do that, it'll be fine.
Now, you've got another copy of this.
I have my copies. As a matter of fact, I made that copy off of a floppy disk. And it goes up to the Ephrata, Washington bit. It doesn't go into the overseas bit. And should have looked this up yesterday, but I put it off to this morning. So that was that part. This is something that they might want here at the museum. It's called an E6B computer. And the E6B computer was the latest thing.
Hold it up for the record.
Okay, this was the latest way to navigate during World War II up to the time that radar came into
This was
effect.
the step before radar.
And that's right, and you would put in your direction, your airspeed, the direction of the wind, and the wind speed, and of course you can see here, you know, you can draw lines on this thing, and it would direct you everything equal to where you were going. That has been sitting, those are the instructions on it, and this has just been sitting in the closet there forever, and I thought somebody around here might want that as being.
You can be assured that somebody around here, in
That's
fact,
right.
does want it.
That's right. That's exactly. They call it dead reckoning, is what it was called. Then you had your navigator, who was really the one that put you on it. He could do celestial navigation. They told us how to do it, the pilots, but you know, we didn't do that because, you know, we just didn't.
So you felt the training was really good. I mean,
Training was about as sophisticated and as thorough as it could be. They had what they called a link trainer. And a link trainer was a little device about as big as this desk. It had a little wing on it and a little big tail on it, but it had the cockpit and all the instruments in there. And you would sit there and they would say, okay, now you're going to do such and such and so and so. You're going to take off and fly to Memphis, Tennessee from if we were wherever we were. And you would take off, talk on the radio just like you were talking to a tower or a control center somewhere, climb to altitude, just do everything while you were, it would tilt so it would feel like you were flying, see. And that was probably, well, it gave you the fundamentals, so when you got up there and your instructor before we got to be full-fledged pilots, and even after that you had to have check rides, would tell you to do such and such and so and you would have a good idea, well, you know what to do. But, of course, there's nothing like doing it in the real thing.
But you didn't keep up your flying after the war.
I should have. I did get my private license, and I got it Park Airfield. I don't know whether you know where Park Airfield is or not. It's at Lower Roswell Road and Johnson's Ferry. There's a big shopping center there now, and there was a big field there that had a slope on it of about maybe a 4 or 5 degree slope. And that's where I got my, and at one end of it was Johnson's Ferry Road, which was barely paved. This was in '56, I guess, or something like that, or maybe before then. And there was an old fella out there that was giving flying lessons and certifying you to fly in an old Piper Cub. And I went out there and got that thing.
Was it easy to go from B-29 to Piper Cub?
Different breed of cat. 29s and the heavy airplanes are easy to fly if the fans are turning.
Yeah.
Because you've got momentum, and you have weight, and the wind will affect you, but it's not like a light plane. A light plane, little wind, you know, you do this. And about the only trouble with tense part of landing a big plane, as far as I'm concerned, would be a crosswind when you were landing on a runway. Mm-hmm. And of course you would turn it so that the wind, you would still be coming straight up the runway, and just before you hit, you had to kick your rudder and line it up so that you'd be going straight. But a little plane, you were just all everywhere. So as far as I was concerned, on light planes, it was almost a controlled crash every time you I did do some flying, took the family from Fulton to Peachtree to Cab or wherever it was to Savannah several times, but I gave up that mainly because I always felt that if it wasn't an instinct, if you had to think what you were doing when you were flying it, you better not fly it, because you didn't get a second chance.
Any other things you want to show us?
Well, this is I guess you'd call it specifications, whatever on B-24s. 29s. I have a 24, but I don't know what happened to it. And this is other stuff on that. And this is something that if you all are interested in it, I can make some copies and probably one of these days let you have it. But this is the Pirates Log, as they call it. In the 6th Bomb Group of the 313th Wing, this is that history of all. I don't know whether there's whether you would find one of these anywhere.
These are the things
unless by some chance you would.
This is
This shows the damage and tells of all the bomb ruins and gives a list of the crews that were killed or lost in action, as you see. So, as I say, if the museum would have a place for that and be interested in that, I would let you all have that at some time.
I think they'll take you up on it. I just have this feeling they'll take you up on it.
Have this right now, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah, we'll divide up the booty in a few minutes.
Right.
Mr. Cheves, thank you ever so much for coming to visit with us and tell us your story. And
You're welcome.
This is going to be interesting. There are people who are interested in the training and how all work and that sort of thing.
That written part there, I had a lot of fun doing that, and each story might be a little bit different because you know what memory does to you. But you are welcome to that, and I will finish that off and let you have from Ephrata, just before Ephrata, Washington, on up through the rest of it as you'd like to have it. Also, I have trying to bring up my memories of different things that happened to me from the first thing I can remember. And I'm always interested in flying. That might be off. I can remember standing on my first home I can remember was number 2 Habersham Road. And it was behind the key lot. There was a key lot on Peachtree Battle and Habersham. But at the time, there was nothing off. Key lot's a corner lot.
Oh, okay. I know.
There was an old dead tree that had fallen on the ground out there, and I can remember standing on that log in 1929, waiting for Charles Lindbergh to fly over. I was convinced that he was going to fly right over my house. Of course, he didn't.
But he visited Atlanta. He visited Atlanta.
Yes, he came in that day.
And
that's what the radio said. You know, the radio in that day and time was about that wide and about that tall. And I was convinced that there were little people back in there doing all that talking. I couldn't understand radio waves. Still don't understand it, but I know there's no people there now.
we're finished. Okay. Well, I think we've come to the end of your story, Mr. Cheves. We thank you ever so much for joining us today and telling us about what you did way back when.
Well, if I can, when I start getting my brain back in gear, I'll holler at you again, or maybe send you a note or two, but on this other things that I have.
Well, we welcome the gifts, and anything you want to give, we'll find a good home here at the History Center.
That sounds good, and I hope that this is of interest to somebody.
It will be.
Right.
And we thank you. You take care.